Hi everyone, welcome to another Coach's Clinic. My name is Kyle. I'm a personal trainer here at Golden Home Fitness, and today's clinic is about flexibility and creating a program for your flexibility, just more of the benefits. Not actually how to do it. We've done that in the past, but when I mention something in the past, I'll let you know when we've done it, and so you can check out those videos, and then you can see more detail on what I'm talking about back in those videos. But a lot of the videos we've already done, already discussed, me or Coach JJ. A lot of them we spoke about flexibility. So these are a lot of combining that information together as a general conversation about the benefits and what you can do with those, and just kind of get your mindset a little bit differently in flexibility training, so you can have an easier time to understand why you're doing it and to add it into your daily life. So if you saw my last one on Tuesday, I briefly went over it, but today I'm going to go into much more detail on explaining the benefits and what you want to do when training for flexibility. So first off, what is flexibility? It is the range of motion in your joints, and it's the limits that you have. There are many reasons why you might have a limit in your range of motion. There could be because of tightness in your muscles, or when your muscles have been shortened. The myofascial tissue that surrounds your muscles, that tissue could also be tight. Genetics also take an important part in uh, your limit of your range of motion. I'm going to do a lot of shoulder movements because it's easy for you to see, and the shoulder has a lot of range of motion for the most part. But for genetics, it could be the tendons, it could be even just the skin outside of that joint, or the structure itself could be your limit of where your range of motion is. There are people that are double jointed. I'm not one of them, so their natural range of motion will be a larger range compared to my own range of motion. Age also has an effect on your range of motion, so that's why when you get older, it is even more important to stretch, and so you get as much range of motion as you possibly can have. Your sex can also affect your range of motion, and your current, if you have a current or have had a previous injury or illness, that can really affect your limits and range of motion. So you could have had surgery on, let's say, like a knee is a very risky place where you can get an injury. If you have surgery on it, you might not have that full range of motion that you had before, and so that could limit how far you can bend that knee. So what flexibility training goal to do is to maximize that range of motion that you do have, so you can get as close as you possibly can to what you're supposed to have. And if you really work hard and do it on a daily basis, you'll be able to reach as far as you possibly can. So I do want to say, if you have a poor flexibility, it can lead to discomfort and pain in whatever joint or limits that you have in that area, which can then lead to poor form of the exercises that you're doing. The poor form could actually make your flexibility even worse. So it's a big cycle of, once one thing starts going wrong, it just cycles into getting in a worse situation for your range of motion. So that's why it's so important to do all your exercises in proper form, even just your daily lives, any repetitive movement that you might have could possibly hinder your range of motion, could shorten your muscles. So you'll want to stretch and make sure that you're loose when you're able to do it. So that's why all those things are so important, to avoid having those pains and discomforts um, because of the things I just listed prior that can be helped. So a muscle imbalance is so I'm going to start from the top and talk about your muscles themselves, and when they have been shortened, uh, it could affect how you move and how you rest, and kind of how your posture looks. So if your one side of your muscle is tight, that will lengthen the other one. So I'm going to give you an example with my arm, this is right here, it's very easy. So two muscles that are used is your biceps and triceps. So if your bicep muscles are tight, then your arm will naturally rest up, your forearm will go up as your triceps will lengthen. And it could be vice versa. Maybe your triceps have been tightened, and so that will lengthen your biceps, and you have a harder time squeezing your arm together. So that's why it's very important to keep both sides loose. Neither side is tight, so that you can have that full range without any discomfort, without any pains. And so that area is not usually as common of an area to have discomfort, but it certainly is common enough where you want to keep both sides of those muscles lengthened whenever you possibly can, and be careful about overuse and using those muscles too short, so you don't have that discomfort. And that could happen at anywhere in your body. For when you have a tightened muscle, you'll end up uh, compensating for that tight muscle, which can lead down a rabbit hole, another cycle of getting worse. So let's say, for example, let's say your back is some muscles in your back that's tight. So you'll kind of, to compensate, you'll lean a little bit to the side. So you'll feel a little bit more comfortable. But when you lean to the side, to fix that, you'll have to fix your head into a certain angle, which over time, with a repetitive position or movement like that, your neck will start hurting. So just because your one area is tightened and they need to loosen, it doesn't mean it won't affect the rest of your body. It will. It could possibly trigger a chain reaction of having more areas that is uncomfortable. So that's why you want to keep your back loose, keep your neck loose, keep as loose as you possibly can with all your joints and all your muscles that you have. So that's why it's very important to have your stretch routine, your warm ups, your cool downs, and even programming outside of the days you are strength training or doing cardio or whatever kind of exercise that you are doing. You can have a separate program of loosening yourself up so it'll be easier down the road to have a healthier, happier life and be able to exercise a bit easier. And so there are a few different types of ways to stretch. The first, or to relax your body. So the first one is the self myofascial release that I'm going to discuss. So self myofascial release is when you kind of massage your muscles, or it's more of massaging the fascial tissue that surrounds your muscles. Sometimes they can be tightened, which can lead to poor range of motion in whatever joint you might have. So when you want to, you can massage with a foam roller, a massage ball, you can have a massage gun, you have this handheld rollers, or even just massaging with your own hands can also loosen up the fascial tissue and loosen up that area, or someone else can massage you as well. So the self-myofascial release, there's two different ways that it loosens you up. So the first way is when you are massaging yourself, their blood increases in that area, which will then relax the fascial tissue. Like it gets a little more blood in that area. And the second reason is it's just talking about the nerves. So just having a pressure on a particular area, so maybe you're rolling out with a massage gun or a ball on your chest, your body feels that pressure right there and triggers your nervous system to relax those muscles. And that's the reason why you want to, when you find a sore spot and you find an area that you need to relax, only spend 2 minutes on that area. And if it hasn't been relaxed after those 2 minutes, switch it up and change to a different area, because if you are holding too much pressure on that one area for too long, it might do the opposite of where the nerve's like, oh, there's a lot of pressure, there's danger here, and then it will tighten it up. So once you get to 2 minutes, rest, and you can go back to that area another day and keep working that area. So sometimes when you have a tightened area or feels tightened, you might need a long time to loosen that up. So it does take a bit of a process, and that's why when you add a new program, you're not going to expect it to happen in one day. Just like building strength, building muscle is no different from being able to loosen yourself up with flexibility training. You can do self-myofascial release for your warm-ups to get yourself loosened up and ready for whatever physical activity that you might have, and also cool downs as well. When you're doing a cool down, it actually has proven that helps avoid delayed onset muscle soreness, so you can decrease your pain that you have a couple days after you exercise if you do self-massage yourself. So that's a big benefit to avoid that soreness. But if you have any other medical issues, just make sure that you check with your doctor first before you start doing it, especially if this issues with your blood. So there's pressure on yourself, so you want to be careful for that sort of thing. So check with your doctor or physician. Then the next most common stretching is static stretching, which is just holding a stretch. So let's say if I want to stretch my shoulder, I'm just going to have my arm over my side, pull that arm in close to my chest for about 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes, just like self-myofascial release. And then once after 2 minutes, I move on to another muscle area. So again, you possibly have if you might overstretch it if you hold it for longer than 2 minutes, and it also might take more than one session to really loosen up certain muscle areas. It might take days, weeks, months to be able to find that full range of motion that you might be looking for. Yes, like I said before, static stretching really helps when your muscles have been shortened. So if, let's say, my triceps have been shortened and are tight, I can use a tricep stretch like this, hold it for up to 2 minutes, maybe minimum of 30 seconds, and then move on. Sometimes if you are loose, you don't need to hold it for the full 2 minutes if you have that or that range of motion, and so you can save some time and move on. For warm-ups, static stretching might not be the best version of stretching. I'll go over to the next one I'll discuss will be a little bit better of a warm-up type of stretch where it's very similar to static stretching. But static stretching, you probably don't want to do a stretch for more than 30 seconds because once you lengthen those muscles, your strength might not be as strong because you're not used to having your muscles lengthen like that. So you also have a risk of injuring yourself. So I'll go into better detail next stretching type to do over static stretching. But what doing a static stretch after an exercise, after exercising, is a great thing to do because it will, after you've exercised, you've tightened a lot of your muscles, stretch it out, and so for the long term, very similar to self-myofascial release, you'll be able to be a bit looser and be able to recover a little bit easier once you finish that stretching the next following days following your whatever exercise you might have done. And then with static stretching and self-myofascial release, you can just create a program just between those two things. So you can spend a couple of hours just because your body is large. You have a lot of muscle groups. You have a lot of different areas. So you can do a full program of these two stretches. And if you do it every day or every other couple of days or whatever you might program into, you'll be able to loosen up your whole body and be able to exercise a little bit easier because once you are looser, you have that bigger range of motion, it'll show that you'll become stronger when you are lifting, you are a little bit faster or whatever you might do. You'll become a better athlete and be able to move a little bit easier and less risk of injury, like I've talked about before. So you can do it every morning and or every evening, whatever best fits your schedule. So like I said before, for a warm-up, static stretching might not be the best. You can do it up to 30 seconds, but past that, you might lengthen your muscles too much. But instead of doing that, you can do what's called active stretching. So this is when you are going into a stretch and then out of a stretch for about 1 to 2 seconds. So for example, if I want to stretch my shoulder, stretch it out the side, do that stretch, hold it for 1, 2, and then relax. And then go back into it, 1, 2, and relax. So you still are stretching it out, you're moving those muscles a little bit. It's an advantage of also using your opposite muscles as well on certain stretches. So sometimes you'll want to warm up your muscles that you're going to shorten. I'll get even more into detail in the next type of stretching I'll discuss, but active stretching is kind of in the middle between static and dynamic is the next type of stretching I'll talk about. And so it will help stretch out your muscles, but without overstretching it, so you'll be able to do the exercise without hurting yourself. So it's recommended to hold the stretches for about 1 to 2 seconds and do about 5 to 10 repetitions. And then you can move on to another area or move on to the next part of your warm up. So I would say active stretching is really good for a warm up type um, program. And then the final one, like I said, is dynamic stretching, which is pretty much doing an exercise but without being loaded with heavier weights. So let's say you are doing resistance exercise, you are lifting heavier weights. Dynamic stretching is just doing those movements without any of the weight. So sometimes it's just your body weight. For example, if you're going to do squats, a good thing to do is do a squat without any weight. So just do a normal squat. Let's say feet a little bit wider shoulder width apart, nice and tall, slight bend in your knees, and just squat down and then back up. That's 1 repetition. And so it's a lot easier than doing the weights. It will warm up all the muscles that you're about to use on that loaded squat that you're going to do. So it's a great way to warm your muscles up before you get into that heavier weights. Sometimes the body weight won't be enough. Other times it will be. So let's say you want to do some shoulder presses. You may want to do a significantly less weight, do a few repetitions of that before you go into the heavier weights. Or if you do a chest press, you can do a much lighter chest press weight, or you can do a different activity like doing push-ups instead to warm up your chest muscles before you get into that heavier weight of the chest press that you're going to do. You can do about 10 to 15 repetitions of this just to warm yourself up, and then you can move on into your exercise program that you're going to do. So I've just went over many different ways to do stretching, different types of stretching, and if you have any questions about any of this, feel free to reach out to us. Some of this has been repeat discussions from past clinics, so we might have already seen us go over this sort of thing, but it's good to put it all together so you know why you're doing it, the benefits of it, and be able to do it. Think about it a little bit differently so you're able to understand why you're doing it. So it's a little easier to do something when you understand why you're doing it. But thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.